We're going to advance now to talking about managing the product. Notice that we have 2 chapters in our textbook on products and product control. This is how important this part of marketing is, that the product is really the core. Everything that we do everything for is to promote the products and services both. We're actually, with this product P now, we're into our 4 Ps, as you know, so this is all still part of that product P. Okay, let's look at our objectives for the chapter. Explain the different product objectives and strategies a firm may choose to use on their products. Look at how a firm manages the product life cycle. That's something very, very important to think about is, once you introduce a product, now what do you do with it? We've talked in Chapter 8 about the product itself and how we go about creating the product. Now we have to manage it. Branding, brand strategies. We briefly touched on branding, and I like to do that as often as we can, actually, because branding is such a critical component now of marketing. And companies are spending an awful lot of time on branding and putting their brands together. Packaging and labeling, boy, that's becoming more and more critical, and more legal issues involved with that. And then how marketers can structure the organization to work on products. Okay. Objectives and strategies for multiple products. This is assuming now, and actually this applies to services also. Everything we're talking about here is about products and services. In Chapter 10, we'll differentiate the products and services, but for now everything relates to either. A product line is everything a firm offers. Okay. Now, if you only have one product or service, then obviously the product line is that one particular product. And I'll show you some product lines and product mixes in just a moment. The product line strategies, you're going to have full line or limited line strategies. Obviously, that's obvious what it is. You have many, many things in that line as opposed to having just a few types of products in the line. I'll show you that when we get to an actual product mix. You can have upward, downward, two-way line stretching, filling out or contracting your product line. Now, cannibalization is a risk, and that's true. Cannibalization, of course, is when you essentially destroy your own products. You take market share away from your own products. This is something you have to worry about when companies like, let's take Budweiser, comes out with, I believe the one they just came out with recently was Black Crown, a little higher alcohol content. But did that take some of the consumers of Bud Light or Budweiser away from those two products? And that's cannibalization. It's always a risk when you introduce additional products into your product line or product mix. The product mix, again, that's a total set of products. That's everything. The width of product mix must be considered. And product lines in mix usually have some things in common. Usually. Not always, and I'll show you some that really don't. Quality is a product objective, the science of TQM. This came about, again, in the early 90s. Product quality, product or service quality. We'll talk about service quality in Chapter 10. It's obviously we want to have a quality product, and most of you don't realize that in today's market we have high-quality products. 25, 30 years ago, or even earlier than that, we didn't. It really wasn't an issue. And TQM came into being in the 90s, Total Quality Management. That was from Deming. You might want to look at some of the things that he has written and put together. And he actually tried to do this quality movement in the United States, and we rejected it, essentially. So he took it to Japan. And indeed, the Japanese companies embraced it, and now it's worldwide. Quality guidelines. This is important depending upon what industry you're in, what company you work for. This is also true for exporting products. For instance, the European Union has a set of guidelines, quality standards. For any company who wants to export into the European Union, you must meet certain guidelines. The United States, we have ISO 9000, ISO 14000, and 9000 is standards for quality of the product. 14000 are environmental issues. Six Sigma, this is essentially, if you think about your statistics classes and look at the normal distribution, you want as few defects as possible, and the tails of your normal distribution is where you want the problems to occur, if at all. So they're way out there. That's why they call it Six Sigma. It's 6 standard deviations. Product quality. Here are the kinds of things that we look at when we choose products and how we define quality within a product. It's pretty obvious what we do. The problem becomes each individual consumer evaluates these differently and has different expectations for what they want. Here's a concept that is widely used. I'm not sure that it's completely understood. And if you think about this, is called the product life cycle. This is something that marketing blatantly borrowed from biology, and it is indeed about development, introduction, growth, maturity, and decline, and it's very much like our human life cycle. You have your introduction stage, and this essentially is profits over sales. In the introduction time, you have no profits because you're developing the product, you're introducing it. Over that time frame, you're still losing money because your sales aren't high enough. Growth stage, you start to increase your profits because your sales are going up. Maturity stage, that's where your sales peak and start to decline, and your profit margins begin to decline also. And then in your decline stage, the market shrinks, sales fall, and your profits fall. Now, this can be, I don't want to say manipulated, but that's what it is, by companies. They can predict, they can really control to some degree this product life cycle. Think about Procter & Gamble and Tide. And Tide has been around since, I think, 1947. And I believe if you were to look at the product life cycle for Tide, you would see that it has not started that decline stage. So they can keep that curve going up by the things that they're doing, introducing the new and improved version of Tide. As opposed to, if you look at a Microsoft, they purposely push a product into that decline stage because they're bringing out the next version of something. So this is something that companies actually follow. It's very difficult, though, to actually see it and visualize it. This is what we look at. We look at our 4 Ps across that product life cycle. And the inside of that box is not necessarily accurate at all because it's going to be very situation specific, such as pricing. You could use high price or low price. Your promotion, you do have to create awareness, but as you go through that life stage in growth and maturity, some things are done differently. Your channel may be different, so your place, you may start out with one distributor, one dealer. You may get more. You may start out with a lot and narrow those down. So I want you to understand the concept is that you've got this product life cycle, and your 4 Ps change across that product life cycle depending upon your strategies. This is about the introduction phase, and brand new products have, to some degree, if there's no competition, fairly easy to do if it's something that they've done their research and know that they want something, that the marketplace wants it. Some products never make it out of this phase. If their marketing plan is done incorrectly, they may never get beyond this. Growth stage, this is where the product has been accepted. It's being used by more and more of the marketplace. Sales increase. The maturity stage, that's where your sales peak, start to bend over that curve. And decline stage, sales decrease, either as you bring out something to replace a product or as customer needs change. That depends upon the situation. Mature products, Marketers need to keep giving consumers new products, new reasons to buy. They change it, they enhance it, they modify it. You can come out with new uses for things, such as, I think, Arm & Hammer baking soda is an amazing product to watch what they've done with that as far as the product life cycle. You know, it was used for baking, and now we have it in detergent and toothpaste and in refrigerators, and it's everywhere. So you change the product to keep it going up that curve. Why new products fail? This is a real critical thing to think about. Over-championing is one of them. Somebody in the organization thinks that this is just the best thing ever, and they're going to make sure it works, when in reality it shouldn't work at all. Overestimated demand. An example of this, back in 2006, I took several students over to Germany. There were 17 students. We went over to Eastern Germany. The purpose was to see how the companies in that part of Germany were trying to reestablish themselves, change themselves after the reunification of Germany. Well, we went to Dresden, which is way over on the eastern border of Germany, and VW has what they call a transparency plant there, and it's a beautiful, magnificent factory. It's an assembly factory, actually, where they were assembling the Phaeton. The Phaeton was VW's entry into the high-priced cars. It very much was like the Audi 8 cars of that nature. They had predicted that they would sell 20,000 the first year. And we were there in July, and thus far they'd only sold 6,000. So their sales were way below what they had expected. And we were in the assembly plant as they were supposedly putting the Phaeton together, and they weren't putting anything together. They had the Bentley in the assembly plant. The Bentley was a British car. Now they were assembling it in this factory assembly plant in Germany. And, of course, they tried to explain why, and the reason was that they had overestimated the demand. Reason being, this was like the Audi 8, so it was an $85,000 car. Beautiful. They were absolutely beautiful cars, but it's a VW, and they had the VW insignia all over it. And, you know, VW, if you have any German at all, is the Volkswagen. It's the car of the people. And not too many of the people are going to buy an $85,000 car that's called a VW. So they really overestimated demand. I don't know if they're still producing it, but when we were over there, they were going to position it as a corporate car, so companies were buying them as fleet cars. Not a good move. Another reason is poor design. Something about it just doesn't work correctly. I don't know that the iPhone 5S is poor design, but I don't know that it's particularly sufficiently different from the 4S for people to consider a new product, and the people I know who are getting it get that when their other phone dies or something like that. Poor marketing execution. You haven't done your marketing correctly. Your marketing plan was either poorly designed, poorly developed, or poorly executed. You have really, really high development costs and can't recoup them, or you come out with something and strong competitive reaction takes place. Challenges in new product development. I don't know that I agree with all of these, but certainly some of them. Idea shortage. I don't think we have an idea shortage. I think companies are challenged to take ideas to the marketplace, to commercialize them. We do have fragmented markets. Our markets are becoming more and more fragmented, meaning they're smaller, they're harder to get to. When we talked about segmentation, all the criteria for a good segment, more and more challenging to find a really good segment. Many, many social and governmental constraints. Let's look at the pharmaceutical industry in this country. So many of our elder citizens are driving across the border into Canada to get their pharmaceuticals because they can't get it here in this country. The cost just costs too much. Cost is prohibitive to get anything accomplished or finished. Capital shortage. To some degree, that's true. There are still venture capitalists out there. Need for speed. Boy, is that correct. more and more often now we have to get products out to the marketplace faster and faster all the time. Used to be able to take sometimes 2-3 years to come out with a new version of something. Now sometimes it's down to 18 months or shorter. And those product life cycles are becoming more and more challenging as they become shorter. Creating product identity, branding. Now we talked about branding very briefly back in Chapter 8, but I want to go over it again because it is that important in marketing today. A brand is a name, term, symbol, or any other unique element that identifies one firm's product and sets it apart from the competition. And look around at all the brands that are out there, how they went about getting that brand. Took a lot of marketing, a lot of resources. What's in a name or symbol? A good brand name. It does develop a relationship with customers. Remember, we're talking about relationship marketing. And I am a die-hard Diet Coke brand loyal consumer. I don't even think about that PEPSI stuff. Die-hard brand loyal individual. And we're all like that with some things. I'm not sure we can explain why, but that's who we are. You position a product by its image or how it works. And I'll talk about this a little bit more, but what's a good brand name? It has to be easy to say, spell, read, and remember. And many of them don't follow those criteria at all. It fits the target market, product benefits, the culture, and legal requirements. Trademark. Now this is a legal aspect of products and branding. It's a legal term for a brand name, brand mark, or trade character. Trademarks legally registered by a government obtain protection for exclusivity use in that country. This, as you can see, is a trademark symbol used in the United States. Any of you who happen to be on Wright State's campus, we have a gentleman his office is in the library. His name is Rand Rader, and he actually gives workshops on trademarks. So if any of you are looking at trying to develop a product or service and do want to get it protected, you might talk to Mr. Rader and take one of his workshops. Why brands matter? Well, they do. Now this is a strategic decision. Some companies choose not to brand. They go with generic products. With generic products, however, you have to be able to differentiate your product from the competition. With a brand, you develop that brand identity, and that differentiates the product. So brand's value to its organization over and above the value of the generic version of the product. That's the brand equity. I'm going to talk about that more in just a moment. Brand equity provides competitive advantage, and it does result in brand loyal consumers. I will let you look at this at your leisure. Dimensions of brand meaning, and these are all some of the pieces we've talked about already, such as some of the colors, the attribute of the product, genders, social class, reference groups, life stages, and so on. So I'll let you look at that as you choose, and these are some of the dimensions of brand meaning. Brand storytelling. You like to engage consumers with stories about the brands. You think about some of your preferred brands and what are they and why do you prefer those. And oftentimes you can indeed have some kind of memories attached to the brand. There are many characteristics of world-class brands. There are reports that come out periodically as to which of the brands are the top in the world. And they tend to fluctuate a bit, but the last time I looked, it was Coca-Cola, McDonald's, Google, those sorts of brands are the world's top brands. Brand extensions, new products sold with the same brand name, that can be, again, some of the modifications of brands. And sub-branding, creating a secondary brand within a main product. Some of your cars have these. Many of the Toyotas have sub-brands, so that's part of the Toyota brand, but it's a sub-brand. Branding strategies, co-branding in that you brand with something else. You brand products together, products or services. Individual brands versus family brands. And go back to co-branding for a moment. I'm sure many of you have seen the, I think it's A&W, and is it Baskin or Robbins? or A&W and I'm trying to think, the fish place, Long John Silver's, they are co-branding. They have stores together. So those are the co-branding sorts of things. National or store brands, licensing your brand, or generic brands. Generic brand is a bit of a oxymoron, but there it is. Branding strategies, individual brands versus family brands. Campbell's, it's a family brand. National versus store brands. If any of you go to a Kohl's, you will see Kohl's brands in there, but you'll also see national brands within the stores, the Kohl's store. Generic brands, again, I really think it's an oxymoron. And licensing, an example of this is some of your NFL or sports teams logos, in that NFL will allow either a retailer or a product developer to use their brand. Co-branding, you see a lot of that today in the marketplace. You see more and more of that because it's less expensive, takes fewer resources to co-brand. Brand metrics, here we go, back to that metrics again. And there are many of these. Again, I encourage you to look at some of the books on metrics today because they change frequently. We get more and more new metrics. But some of the examples here, customer mindset metrics, product market outcome metrics as in market share, financial marketing metrics for your brand, what is the brand worth, and revenue premium metric. Those of you who are finance and accounting majors, it is likely that you will be involved at some time in trying to put together the brand equity of a product or service. Many companies today are actually putting the brand equity on their balance sheet as an asset because the brand actually has a worth, and it does, and you may very well be involved in how you determine that. And you might want to go out and do some research on that when you get involved because there are various ways to do it. I'm not sure anyone yet has come up with the best approach. Packaging, big deal. Big deal today. We expect more and more as a consumer. Our expectations keep going up for packaging. There are various functions of the package. It is there to protect. It is there to promote. It is there to describe. So there are lots of different purposes of your packaging. These are just examples of some of the labeling regulations. There are many, many, many of these out there. If you're involved in packaging of some kind of products, make sure you have someone look for all the potential legal aspects. These are just two of them, and there are many as to what is required now to put on a package or on a label. And these are the types of product management. Now, this is something to think about as far as career paths. Brand managers, and I have a very good friend she always wanted to be a brand manager for Procter & Gamble, and she did eventually get to do that. And she went in as a brand manager for Pampers. And she said she was the world's foremost authority on baby diapers and all that went into and out of them. That was interesting when you'd have discussions with her. She switched after about 2 years and went to be a brand manager for Pepto-Bismol. So equally interesting product. But she basically made all the decisions for that product when she was in charge of it. Product category manager, that would be someone who is involved in an entire product line, such as detergents or soft drinks, something like that. They will have brand managers reporting to them. And then market managers, they are the ones who usually implement that marketing plan for the product. Now, each company may use terms differently, but essentially that's what these individual type positions are. And that's it for product management, and we will proceed. Again, if you need me, email me, call me, or get on the chat.